Hello, you're listening to Shoot the Hostage. My name's Sarah, and together with my partner Dan, we are a movie podcast where we talk about 8 different films per season based around a specific theme. Now, if you're hearing my voice, that means it's my choice of theme this season. But before we get stuck in, I do want to mention we get quite spoilery, so please bear that in mind. We don't want to ruin the film for you, so if you haven't seen it, maybe go away and then come back. If you like what you hear and you would like to help us out, there are a number of ways you can do that. The absolute easiest one is to just recommend us to a friend. If you want to go the extra mile, a 5-star review on Spotify would be hugely appreciated. A review on your podcast player of choice would also be hugely helpful. And if you really, really want to help us, we've got a Patreon, which is £3 a month, and you get access to a ton of extra content in the form of reviews of new cinema releases, new streaming releases. You get to see the lineup of the season ahead of time, and we do a wrap show at the end of every season. But all of that aside, I just want to say thank you for listening, and let's get stuck in. We're at the end of yet another season. Can you believe it, Dan?
Yes.
Are you glad to see the back of coming of age movies?
Honestly, I am. Yes.
I thought your answer would be yes.
Yeah. I won't go into that anymore. I think we'll save it for the wrap show.
Okay.
But, yeah, we're at the end, and I certainly am glad to be there. But I think we're ending on a good one. I think we're ending on... I think it was the right call to end on this one.
I wanted it to be a little bit more upbeat this week.
Yeah.
It's been hard going some weeks.
It has. It has. We've covered some real bleak stuff in this season, and I think this one was just a nice palate cleanser.
Yeah.
A nice way to end. Nice uplifting movie to end on.
The sorbet of movies.
Yeah, sure.
So, Almost Famous is a film that you hadn't seen until relatively recent history. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'd only seen one Cameron Crowe movie, two, which was Jerry Maguire and Vanilla Sky.
Oh.
But you showed me Almost Famous a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah, you'd avoided it, hadn't you?
Yeah, I just wasn't really interested.
Yeah.
I think I saw the trailer. I'm sure when I was going to the cinema in 2000 when it came out, I'd seen the trailer and just been like, yeah, not really interested in that. I probably won't ever get round to it. And then you showed it to me because you're a fan of it, obviously.
Yeah, I love this movie.
But yeah, and we watched it very recently. So yeah, it's come into my life very recently, this one. But it was out in 2000.
That's nuts. This movie is nearly 25 years old.
Yes. Did you see it when it came out?
I did, yeah.
Cinema?
I believe so. Yeah, I definitely owned it on VHS as well.
Yeah, of course.
Would have been probably one of the last VHS tapes.
Yeah, I suppose DVDs were coming out then, weren't they?
Yeah.
You know, Blade. I think Blade was the first DVD I ever got, actually. Maybe a year or so before that. Yeah, so 2000. We've covered...
oh, God. Yeah.
This is our third movie from 2000.
Mm-hmm.
The other two? Any guesses?
No.
One was one of yours and one was one of mine.
No.
One was in this season.
One was in this season?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, a few weeks ago.
Oh, no. Well, it wasn't 13 because that was a little bit later, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That was like 2003. Moonlight was much more recent. Come and See was 80s. What else have we done?
Stand By Me.
That was 85?
Ginger Snaps.
Was it? Oh, 2000. Right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Process of elimination.
Yeah. So Ginger Snaps, and the other one is The Way of the Gun.
Oh, right.
Which was
yeah.
also 2000, which was obviously one of mine.
That's an aggressively 2000 movie.
Yeah, agreed.
So this movie's set in, is it 1973?
Yeah.
Which means in about 18 months' time, the distance between when this movie was set, when it came out, and now will be identical, which is crazy.
So, what? Sorry? What do you mean?
Like, If it's set in 1973
Yeah.
and it came out in the year 2000, that's 27 years.
Yeah.
So in another sort of 18 months, it will be another 27 years.
Oh, I see. Oh, why did you say that? That's depressing.
Sorry.
Oh, don't do that. It's like when you think of the Back to the Future thing.
Yeah,
Like
I know.
in 2015, it was the same between 50s and 80s. And
Yuck.
yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, set in 1973. It's kind of, a bit like This Is England, where it's based loosely on the director's kind of adolescence.
Yeah. Semi-autobiographical.
That's the phrase I was looking for, yeah. Cameron Crowe.
Yeah.
Who sounds like a Spider-Man villain.
He does. Yeah, it's the alliteration.
This would have been the third Cameron Crowe movie I'd seen. He's made, I think, 8 quote-unquote proper movies. A few...
Some music stuff.
Documentaries like about Pearl Jam, Tom Petty. But he's made 8 kind of movies, feature movies, if you like, as far as I could tell. And I think Almost Famous was his 4th one, right?
Yeah, I think it must have been. It's nuts because in my head, like Cameron Crowe is this really prolific filmmaker. So hearing that he's only made 8 feature films is kind of wild.
Yeah.
I don't know why. You've seen Singles. I made you watch Singles.
I've seen Singles. Yes, you're right. Well,
yeah.
Yes. I've also seen Singles.
Yeah.
I've also seen Aloha.
Yep, that's something I've avoided.
I would highly recommend that.
Would you?
I think you'd get a lot out of it, yeah.
Is there no sarcasm?
What's sarcasm? I don't know what that is.
Okay, so genuine recommendation from Dan there.
Yeah. I think this one was his 4th one, so Say Anything would have been his first directing credit.
You've seen that as well?
Yes, but you showed me all of these films.
But since Almost Famous?
Yes.
Right,
so
so this is still the 3rd one that you saw. I see.
Yeah. First he directed, or if he wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right? He wrote a novel, and then that got adapted. I think it got the attention. Or no, I think he wrote that, and then he followed that up with another book called The Wildlife.
Right. Yes, that's. I want to say, is Eric Stoltz in it?
Sure.
I've never seen it. It's not got much of a presence in this country.
I'd never heard of it until you showed me the thing for it on Letterboxd the other day.
I hadn't heard of it until maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Somebody who listened to my old podcast told me of its existence, and I went looking for it and struggled to find it. I found a VHS copy on eBay.
For like £300 or something.
Probably, and covered in mould.
Yeah, doesn't work.
Yeah.
No
haven't
case.
tested it. We all know what haven't tested it means.
Yeah. So Fast Times, that got adapted into a movie directed by Amy Heckerling.
Yeah, Clueless.
Yep, Clueless.
Love.
He then wrote The Wildlife, which was again adapted into a movie directed by Art Linson. And that got the attention of James L. Brooks, who produced that movie, kind of put him in touch with Cameron Crowe, and then gave him his first directing credit with Say Anything.
Okay. What did you think of Say Anything? Because that's kind of beloved.
No, I didn't like it very much.
Yeah. I can't say I'm too shocked, to be honest. It's a hell of a performance from John Cusack, though.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean,
Lloyd Dobler.
He holds that big radio. That must have been hard.
I think it's one of my favourite Cusack performances. I mean, it's no Con Air.
I prefer the sequel, Grosse Pointe Blank.
So you know enough about it that you know some fan lore connecting the two.
I've seen it.
So you think Lloyd Dobler becomes Martin Blanc?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I've also seen Jerry Maguire. I saw it when it came out. I think I saw it twice. Around, when it came out around 96, and then again maybe 3 or 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Really liked it at the time. We decided we would put it on the other night as a kind
Who decided?
Part of our research. Well, I think it was my Monday movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, you decided.
I decided to put that on, and I did not like it.
I mean,
I struggled with it this time.
I liked it when it first came out. I really did. I think my biggest stumbling block to any film is the presence of Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Especially when he's the central character. The titular character, no less.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I obviously got a lot of time for most of the Mission Impossible movies, and not really much outside of that. The odd sci-fi movie here and there, like your
Edge of
Oblivions.
Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow
brilliant.
is
yeah.
great, yeah, truly. But him as the titular Jerry Maguire, who's just an insufferable narcissist.
He's odious.
I hate him.
Yeah.
And I was not rooting for him at all. And the most interesting thing in that movie was Cuba Gooding Jr., but I even hated him towards the end of it. Like, stop doing fucking dancing, mate. Shut up.
I don't mind his performance because I think without it, that film would just be a really, really bland rom-com.
Yeah.
So I do think he elevates the material.
I agree. For 80% of the movie, and then by the last 20%, I've just had enough. And I just need it to end.
You're all giddinged out.
And I can't stand Bridget Jones in that movie at all.
Renee Zellweger.
Renee Zellweger.
Renee.
Yeah, I hate her character. I think she's just an insufferable wet flannel of a character who's just got no agency, or she's not interesting at all.
Yeah, I find the romance element quite problematic, actually, because
totally.
I don't buy it. None of it feels sincere. They both feel like they're in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So it's impossible to root for.
It feels very forced. And it was cheesy as fuck, man. Like, it got to the end and I was like, oh, that's where those things come from, is it?
Oh, you didn't know the Had Me at Hello thing?
I probably did when it came out and I saw it, but I'd totally forgotten.
Because that's been parodied to death.
Yeah, and that's not the fault of the movie, but maybe that's partly why I'm sort of rolling my eyes thinking, come on, let's end this now.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly I was like, I hate you, Jerry Maguire. I want you to die in a house fire. And he didn't, and I was disappointed in that. But that was a bit disappointing because my memories of that film was like, yeah, really good, really enjoyed that movie. And then I had such a polar opposite experience when we watched it the other night.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like, I was just very surprised by that. It's funny how your tastes kind of change over the years, I think. It's interesting.
I think emotional maturity really changes your perspective quite a lot.
Yeah.
Or it did mine anyway. But yeah, it's always disappointing to revisit something that you enjoyed.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's safer to leave things in the past.
I think so. And it's also, I would say it's a movie that a lot of people enjoy and revere.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's great. And I'm glad people enjoy it. So I think I was really expecting to enjoy it a lot more than I did. But yeah, and as I said, I watched Aloha as well. And I would recommend watching that. And that was really excellent. And it didn't have any plot holes at all. The performances were great. Like, Emma Stone's character is so consistent throughout. Like, she starts one way and she kind of evolves, but it's complex,
Right.
And she doesn't, like, immediately just fall in love with Bradley Cooper for no reason. Like, it's not, she's very good and it's subtle. It's a subtle performance and the dialogue is amazing. And yeah, I definitely recommend giving that a go.
I think Cameron Crowe comes, and this is something that I'm going to touch on throughout this show, I'm sure.
He comes in crows.
I think he comes so close to being able to write interesting female characters, but then he can't leave the cliches alone.
Mm.
And it's something he's been criticized for, especially with context to Almost Famous, because obviously Penny Lane is the character that most people remember from this movie, I think.
Yeah,
kind of,
she's on the cover. It's Kate Hudson on the cover of the movie.
And for people like me, obviously I was 18 when this film came out. Mm. So for people like me, she was like a style icon, her character.
That's why you wear that brown coat.
I love it.
Yeah.
My Penny Lane coat, yeah.
He's still got that in his garage, Cameron.
Has he?
Yeah.
I believe it was made out of like a rug or something. The costume people made it.
It was made, yeah. They couldn't find what they were looking for and they made it.
I love that.
And it got to the end of the shoot. He was like, I'm not letting this. I want this.
No, because otherwise it would just sit in a warehouse and then somebody would sell it on eBay 30 years later.
Well, it's sitting in his garage, so it's not much different, is it?
And as long as he goes in there and like lovingly strokes it from time to time and gives it some appreciation, that's
He's saving
fine.
it for the sequel.
No.
Yeah.
Is it after Fame?
The movie Fame?
No. If the first movie's called Almost Famous.
Oh, right.
And it's been this long.
Yeah.
Surely it's post Fame.
Yeah, post Fame World. That's what it's called, I think. It's the working title. It's better than what the working title was for this movie, which was just Untitled.
Really?
Yeah, for the longest time.
In what sense? In the sense that like a lot of music, Like albums start off that way.
Yeah, like precisely. I think he mentioned a Led Zeppelin album, perhaps, that's not got a name.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to call it Untitled. But that obviously doesn't really work, does it, for a film you're trying to market?
And it's a bit pretentious.
It is a bit pretentious, isn't it?
Yeah. I get the reasoning. Okay. But yeah, I think he really does struggle with his female characters.
Yeah.
I think he obviously cares for them. He cares for these creations that he's written, but they're not without misogyny.
Okay.
I'll say that. And when we delve into it a little bit more further down the line, I'm really interested to hear more about Aloha.
Okay.
In that realm. So
all right, I will try and dredge up the bog of eternal stench in my mind where I keep films like Aloha.
I like that reference.
I know you do. As we said, kind of semi
Good Lord.
Semi-autobiographical, based on Cameron Crowe's youth. He really was kept back 2 years or advanced 2 years at school.
Really?
And graduated 2 years.
And wasn't told or was aware of it?
I don't know about that.
Right.
I couldn't find any evidence to suggest that he'd been lied to about his age, as he is in the movie, which was very entertaining, very funny. But
11.
Yeah, really good. I say print a legend. I liked that scene. But yeah, he really did meet Lester Bangs when he was 15 years old.
I didn't even know until you started doing research for this that he was a real guy.
Yeah, real rock music critic.
Yeah.
Writing like 60s, 70s. Sadly died.
Quite young. What, early 30s?
Yeah, I think he was 33 in 1982 when he died. He died listening to a Human League album.
What, do you know what month he died in?
April the 30th.
I was just wondering if I might be the reincarnation of Lester Bangs, but too many months between.
I mean, you don't know for sure that when someone dies.
Maybe it doesn't happen immediately. Maybe there's a gestation period of souls.
Of 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going with that then.
But Cameron Crowe really did meet him, and in a way that was portrayed in the movie very similar to that. He was listening to him on a local radio station, was watching him from across the road,
right,
as well, which he does in this movie. And yeah, I mean, I didn't know that he was a real person either the first time watching. It's only when I was researching for the show that I found that out. But super interesting writer, by all accounts. I haven't read any of his stuff, but I've done a fair amount of research into him. He was the son of a Jehovah's Witness and a truck driver. I don't think that's the same person. I think they're two different people.
Right.
And lost his dad when he was a child. But he was regarded by a lot of people as America's greatest rock critic.
Wow.
Which is surprising. It's surprising to me that I haven't heard of him.
Yeah.
But it's even more surprising to me that you haven't heard of him, because obviously you grew up in a household where you probably predominantly listened to classic rock, right? And folk music.
Well, it was less folk music and more country and western.
Oh, worse.
Yeah, it does get worse. Yeah, I guess so. But it was more sort of the safe side of it. Like my dad was more about like the Eagles, for example, Don Henley,
right,
rather than like Sabbath.
See, when I was a kid, my old man was more about the Sabbath and the AC/DC, and I got
that's way
introduced
cooler.
to a lot of that stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Lester Bangs, he's credited with popularizing the term punk rock.
Ooh.
Which is something I know that you're very interested in, and spoke a little bit about last week in This Is England.
Yes.
Well, what they did is I think him and a few kind of journalists, they applied that term to 1960s garage bands and popular artists like MC5. I've not heard of them.
The MC5, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Iggy Pop, you heard of them?
I've heard of Iggy Pop, yeah. The Stooges.
And Iggy. So I wrote down Iggy and the Stooges thinking they were two different people. What a dunce. I should never admit that.
You shouldn't. You can edit this out, you know.
I'm not editing this out. Fuck 'em.
To hell with vanity.
It's all about, I just care about humour. That's what I care about. Confrontational interview style. When he interviewed people, he liked to open with the most insulting question that he could think of. And immediately he's going up in my estimations.
Oh,
I
no.
like this guy.
No, that makes him sound like Howard Stern, though.
A shock jock.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, depending on what he's saying
and who to, yeah.
But he was also in a band himself, Lester Bangs and the Delinquents.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Was Lester Bangs his real name?
I
It's got to be a moniker, right?
don't know. What, you think his real name was Monica? It might have been.
Sure.
But yeah, Lester Bangs, I had no idea if it was his real name. It does sound made up, but, it sounds cool. He played with Birdland, a band which had Mickey Lee, who's the brother of Joey Ramone,
Oh,
who was in a
okay.
band called the Ramones.
I
Right?
believe I've heard of them, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But he was also, Lester was one of the first music journalists to write about racism in the punk scene.
Interesting.
1979 article called White Noise Supremacists, and it was super interesting. I didn't read the entire thing, but I downloaded it and I got kind of the Cliff Notes version.
That title alone, wordplay,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, but it was interesting. He explored obviously racism in the punk scene, but also his own kind of involvement in that, his own complicity in, his actions and his language, maybe.
Right.
For me personally, when I was a kid, there's stuff that I probably said that I would never say now.
Mm-hmm.
Think, you idiot, why were you saying that stuff? But you have to be able to accept your own faults for that.
Oh, we love some accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was a big fan of, and he praised the band called Rock Against Racism, which I think it was an English band, which I've never heard of.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, he was well known for a few things, a few sort of bullet points of his kind of writing style and things that he was known for. Authenticity in music was a big deal to him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very interesting in this movie. I think they sort of play with that a little bit.
Yeah,
and
sure.
The more I learned about Lester Bangs, the more I liked this movie, spoilers, but the more I respected the movie for also kind of being true to the way he saw things, and I assuming was passed on to Cameron Crowe as well.
So did he kind of serve as a bit of a mentor then?
Yeah,
yeah,
he really did.
Okay.
Yeah, he was all about authenticity in rock music, and the dangers of commercialism, and obviously we live in a world now where everything is commercialized.
God, yeah.
Even if they're pretending it's not, even if it's like even if it's a counterculture, that counterculture is probably still a commercial culture.
Yeah, R.I.P. Lester Bangs. He'd have hated late stage capitalism.
He really would, and I think he saw a lot of that coming, because he was very concerned when he starts talking to when he meets Cameron Crowe's, not Cameron Crowe, whatever his name is, William something. Yeah, he's instilling those notions into him as well, and he's expressing his disappointment at the coming commercialism of rock music. He says, you're going to get a little bit of the good stuff, but it's basically over now, and I like that.
I'm glad he didn't live to see Sublime t-shirts in Primark.
Yeah, yeah.
He'd have hated that.
And people wearing them that just haven't got a clue what they are.
Yeah.
I don't know what Sublime is, to be fair, but I wouldn't wear a Sublime t-shirt.
Well, there you go.
Or maybe I would, and I just wouldn't know.
Or maybe you have.
Maybe I have. Am I wearing one now? Oh no, it's an Avengers top. Yeah, he was hated, loved authenticity, hated commercialism. Was all about performance of passion and energy and realness or authenticity. He mentioned in the article that he wrote, it was all about self-reflection, music as literature, the importance of that as an art form, punk rock as a cultural force, and how that is. I think he saw punk rock as crossed his fingers and sort of saw it maybe as a response or a way to continue the kind of way that he saw rock music, as a response to culture, as a counterculture essentially. And maybe he saw punk rock as a way of maintaining that, whereas rock had gone all commercial, and all slayed. And I think he was sort of hoping that punk rock would be a way of carrying that kind of ethos on. And he just loved music. He was a huge fan. Like I said, he actually, when he was found, he overdosed, accidentally overdosed while self-medicating for a flu.
Oh, damn.
But he was listening to a copy of the album Dare by the Human League.
Oh, okay.
So he died as he lived.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's very sad, but also poetic.
Yeah.
In a way. And it's interesting, obviously, Lester Bangs is played in this movie by Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Who also died of a drug overdose. And those two things are so linked. Like I'm thinking about now when we watched it, and then I did my research, and then I watched it again, and with that knowledge that Lester Bangs died with an overdose, as did Philip Seymour Hoffman, it did hit a bit different, this movie, a little bit.
Brilliantly brought to life by PSH, though. I mean, when did he ever give anything less than 100%?
Yeah, I mean, he's not quite as good as he was in Twister. I'll say that.
Or as, like, Jock number 2 in My Boyfriend's Back. That's a deep cut.
That is really deep. I've not even heard of that. Obviously, I joke. I like him in Twister. Better in this.
Do you know what? This year I came round to Twister. I admitted it on the mini-sode, and I'm not ashamed to say it, but the eclectic cast make that movie, and he's such a standout. So joke as much as you want, but he is genuinely really fun in that film.
Yeah.
He was always brilliant.
I totally agree. I think he was always great. He's really good in Mission Impossible 3. He's done a bunch of stuff that I haven't seen. Like, is that movie Capote? I haven't seen
Capote.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not seen that. It doesn't seem like it's my sort of flavour, so I've sort of skipped it.
Magnolia,
he's in that.
Well, he worked with PTA a few times.
Yeah.
He was kind of what Leo is to Scorsese.
Right, okay. Yeah. Okay.
I suppose.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what the films of PSHs that I've written down, and it's only Twister.
The Master. Come on.
Oh, yeah, where he's definitely not playing L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about Scientology, that movie. I love that.
Sign what? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Big cast in this.
Yeah.
Huge cast. I'm gonna run down them. So
okay.
We've got Patrick Fugit.
Sure.
Or Fugit. Patrick Fugit as William Miller, Kate Hudson as Penny Lane.
Yep.
PSH, Lester Bangs, Francis McDormand, Elaine,
brilliant.
Billy Crudup, Jason Lee, Noah Taylor, Zooey Deschanel. Is it Zooey or Zoe?
Zoe.
Zoe Deschanel, Anna Paquin.
Yep.
Feruza Balk.
Yeah.
And then we got some cameos. I've written down 4 cameos that I was very surprised by. Rainn Wilson.
Yep.
Who was not Rainn Wilson then.
Oh.
He was still he was Rainn Wilson, but he wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't Rainn
Schrute.
Wilson, right? Yeah. I get you.
I've written down Jimmy Kimmel, but I'm sure
Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Flannel.
Fallon. Jimmy Flannel.
Yeah.
That's what he's named now.
I always get those two mixed up.
What, Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Flannel?
Yeah. They're both late night hosts, aren't they? And I always get them confused. Mark Maron is in this movie.
Yeah, I always forget.
And I did not know until this movie, until this viewing actually, that the little voiceover he has at the start of his podcast,
Lock the gates.
That's from this movie.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And it's very funny. It's one of the funniest moments in the movie, actually. And a very young, very teenage boy-looking Jay Baruchel.
Oh my God, tiny Jay Baruchel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mini Baruchel.
And there's another role that I want to bring up very, very quickly. Not quite a cameo, but somebody who was briefly in the movie and then disappears. And that's Bijou Phillips.
Okay.
Who was in the scene where William goes to review Black Sabbath but can't get in and ends up talking to the Band-Aids at the top of the slope. And she's one of them.
Right.
And then she never appears again.
Okay.
And apparently she was fired because she was harassing Patrick Fugit. I don't know in what capacity, but I did a little bit of digging on her. I knew she was married to Danny Masterson. Gross. And I knew she was a Scientologist, but I think she's a family Scientologist. So I'm usually willing to look the other way if they were sort of raised in it. I find that to be a little bit more understandable. And I feel like maybe one of her parents was in like the Mamas and the Papas or something. They were in a band in the 60s. So she's sort of like music royalty or progeny of. But yeah, she had a really, really fucked up upbringing with a lot of different types of abuse. And I don't know, she sounds like kind of a messed up human being. So I'm glad she wasn't in it that much. And I hope she's getting help.
Yeah.
But yeah, notably absent for the rest of the movie for that reason.
Yeah. Okay. And that's she's in that scene when young Cameron. I was going to say Cameron Crowe. Let's get his character name. William Miller. Yeah, William. Bill. Big Billy style. W.
Sure.
What?
I'm shortening it to what? William.
Yeah, William. Young William Miller. That's where he first meets Penny Lane, who is played by Kate Hudson. She was originally cast in a Zooey Deschanel role as William's sister.
Okay.
And originally they wanted...
Oh, you said this the other day. Was it Sarah Polly?
That's right, yeah, Sarah Polly.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. I had no idea till the other day. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm sure she'd have done a fine job, but Kate Hudson embodies this role. Like, I'm not Kate Hudson's biggest fan. I think she's made some missteps. She was in that awful Sia autism movie.
Oh, I never saw that.
No, neither did I. Never will. But she's a decent actor for the most part, and I love her in this. I think she's perfectly cast.
Okay.
Do you?
Yes.
Do you think Sarah Polly would have done a better job?
No, I don't know. I don't know if she would have done a better job, but I do enjoy Sarah Polly though. So it would have been intriguing to see it. But yeah, apparently they wanted her for the role. She couldn't do it for one reason or another. And then they decided that Kate Hudson would be bumped up the cast.
Right.
And probably not number one on the call sheet, but she's probably number two on the call sheet, I would say. And it's interesting. Kate Hudson's actually dated a few musicians in real life, hasn't she?
She was with somebody from the Black Crows for a long time, I think.
Chris Robinson?
Yes.
Christopher Robin. Yeah, that guy. And Matt Bellamy from Muse.
From Muse. Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
They were together for quite a while.
Wow, okay. Do you think her taste in men is influenced by this movie?
I don't know. Maybe.
She's just trying to bring back the magic of Billy Crudup in his prime.
Yeah. Yeah, Billy Crudup's also in this movie.
It's funny because he's not really a name that many people talk about.
No.
He's not an actor I hear about very often.
No.
But he's been in some really high-profile roles. Like, I briefly went through his CV the other day, and it was kind of crazy how many films I'd forgotten he was in.
I went through a few, and I just picked out, Spotlight. I've seen that movie.
Yeah. Watchmen is the big one, I think.
He's the blue guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Manhattan or something.
Yeah.
And anyone that loves Watchmen's hating me and switching off right now. Mr. Manhattan. They're going, "It's Doctor!" Don't correct me. Justice League. He was in that apparently. I don't remember him in that.
Was he?
Yeah, apparently.
Which version? The long one or the really, really long one?
The good one or the shit one? That's what I heard. I don't know. Maybe both. Probably both.
Yeah. But he's pretty good in this.
I think he's great in this.
Yeah.
I think he's great. Apparently Brad Pitt was meant to play that role.
Oh, no.
Can't see it.
No.
You asked me about Sarah Polly. I can see Sarah Polly playing the Penny Lane character more than I can see Brad Pitt playing the Russell Hammond character for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't think it works with Pitt.
No, I can't see that.
He's kind of too pretty and we're too
back then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't like that at all. I don't know, something about the people that are cast look era appropriate, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think people like Brad Pitt look too modern.
Mm.
He looks like he's just walked straight off a fucking aftershave advert set.
Yeah.
Whereas you need somebody who's, capable of growing decent facial hair and looking a bit shaggy.
Yeah, you need long hair and a moustache.
Yeah.
You need, Billy Crudup and Jason Lee, apparently.
See, I'm not a fan of Jason Lee either, another Scientologist. Cameron Crowe does work with a lot of Scientologists, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does. Is Zooey Deschanel a Scientologist?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
But she is a Nepo baby, so maybe.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, I just assume everybody is, shouldn't I?
Yeah, safe to assume. Yeah, I don't know. Jason Lee looks the part as well, though.
He does, and he's very good in this. But I can't think the other Jason Lee movie that I can think of is Dogma.
Mallrats.
He's also in Mallrats, apparently.
He's the main character.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Brody.
I watched that probably again about 5 years ago, and I didn't like it.
I haven't seen it in about a decade, and I'm terrified to rewatch, to be honest.
I really liked it when I saw it in the 90s, but I struggled this time.
Yeah. I mean, even Kevin Smith isn't a big fan.
Of Mallrats?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he was kind of tapped up by the studio to do like a raunchy teen comedy because they were big at that time. And he gave them that and nobody liked it. And he wasn't a fan because he was sort of cajoled by the studio to make X number of changes, and I don't know, I don't think it fully reflects what he had in mind, and ended up being a bit of a disaster.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, I wonder if Jason Lee is going to return for the Dogma sequel that we've got coming up.
Who knows? It sort of feels a little bit pointless to talk about because I'm sure many people have blown smoke up her arse over the years, but Frances McDormand is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, she's always excellent, obviously.
Yeah, she plays Elaine, William's mother, who is also, again, based on Cameron Crowe's real-life mum, who was on set when they were filming.
Oh. Do they have a good relationship?
I think so. I don't think she was a million miles away from Frances McDormand's character.
Okay, because she was like full-on helicopter mom.
Yes. Certainly with his sister, William's sister, Zooey Deschanel character. But apparently, like, yeah, his mum was on set and kind of she went up to Frances and said, you know, a bit concerned about this. And Frances sort of said, look, I'm not going to be playing you. I'm not going to be playing me. It's going to be a kind of mixture, a version of those two things. But yeah, she was great. She was great, but she's always great.
I know, this is what I mean.
Kind of one of those actors that I love what she does so much that it's almost boring to talk about it. Do you know what I mean?
I wanted to bring it up because I don't want to ignore the fact that she was in it, but that's kind of what I was getting at. It's almost like a moot point to say that Frances McDormand was good in something. It'd
almost be more interesting if she delivered a terrible performance. And you go, oh my God, I didn't know she was capable of that. But yeah, she's, 3 Billboards, which I need to rewatch that, but that's a really great movie. Dark Man, of course, is an all-time classic.
Fargo.
She was in that camping movie, which I didn't love, but she was excellent in. Do you remember that?
Camping movie?
Yeah, when she poos in a bucket.
Oh, Nomadland.
That's it, yeah. Normanland?
Nomadland. Normanland.
Yeah, she was in
You just hear what you want, don't you? Just run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Which one is your favourite performance in this movie? It doesn't have to be like a main character. It can be anybody.
It
can be Mark Maron.
It's Maron.
Yeah.
I love how he just keeps shouting, "Lock the gates."
Unrecognisable.
Yeah, I would.
Until you hear his voice.
Yeah. Lock the gates. Yeah, I love it. He's chasing the tour bus in his little golf cart thing as well. I think it's very funny. Yeah, probably him. I do enjoy Russell Hammond's character though. I think probably more realistically out of the big players, I probably like his character the most, I would say.
Yeah.
He's not always the best. He's a bit of a dick sometimes, and a bit has an ego.
Oh yeah, has a huge ego.
Yeah.
But I think that gives way to some of the film's better moments.
Yeah.
Like the scene where they go to the house party and he ends up on the roof screaming, "I am a golden god." That's been parodied a bunch.
Yeah.
That's sort of gone down in film history, that scene.
Right. Okay.
Which I love.
I really enjoyed that when we first watched it. I really enjoyed it when we watched it for the podcast, and I just had so much fun watching it again for the third time the other day. He's great in that. And I love the editing of that as well, when it cuts to because William's like he just downs that cup of acid, Russell, and William says, how will we know when it kicks in? And it cuts to him standing on the roof. I'm a golden god. What will your last words be, Russell? I'm on drugs. Kills me. Absolutely kills me. I love it.
It's the childish, like little the hand movements and the gestures as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
He's so I think probably he's my favourite to watch, I would say.
Yeah.
Although, Philip Seymour Hoffman, it's embarrassing how many really good performances there are in this film, actually, thinking about it.
Do you know what I want? I it's never going to happen, but I want the 2-hour movie of just Philip Seymour Hoffman in character talking passionately about music.
Yeah.
I could have watched 2 hours of that alone. I could have
watched that too, yeah. Yeah.
I think he was definitely the best performance to me.
Well, there is a 2-hour version of Philip Seymour Hoffman talking about his love of science fiction, and it's called The Master. I'd recommend that.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's not about Scientology.
No,
it's not.
Not at all. Not even a little bit. One thing I do want to talk about is kind of in the context of this season. So this movie is definitely coming of age. I don't think I have to justify that. I think it's more than a coming of age movie. I think it sort of segues from coming of age into sort of a road movie and then back again. It's comedic, it's dramatic, it's romantic in places. Like, it sort of ticks a lot of boxes. But in terms of coming of age, I think it'd be really sort of straightforward to just go, well, it's William's coming of age. But I also think it's Russell's.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think maybe he has the biggest growth.
Yeah.
In the movie,
from where he starts to where he finishes, I think you're absolutely right. I think we've discussed it in other episodes. Maybe like you don't have to be a kid or a teenager. It doesn't have to be a child that's going through this growth.
Yeah,
this coming of age. It's literally a growth period. It could be someone of any age,
mm-hmm.
and he's about 30ish or something in this movie.
I reckon. Yeah. Too old to be leading on 16-year-olds.
Well, that is a whole thing that happens in this movie, and it's a whole rabbit hole you can either fall down or you can just go, that happened.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, because I don't want to ignore it, but I don't know, how do you feel about that? Because I know when I first watched this film, like I said, I would have been 18. I was at an age in a culture where that was normalized. I had friends at school who were 15 and who were dating 20-odd-year-olds. That was okay. That was a thing that was considered all right.
Okay.
That was like bragging rights for them. And it wasn't until I became an adult and started looking back and going, fuck, that was creepy. Oh my God, that was so predatory. Yeah. Holy shit, the power imbalance. It didn't really hit me on first viewing. And so that's definitely something that I struggle with on repeat viewings of this film. Do I wish maybe they'd aged her up a year or two? Yes. I don't think the film would have suffered had she been 18.
True.
It would still have been icky, but less so. But at the same time, it was probably really true to life. We know that happened.
Yeah, it was probably absolutely accurate.
So do we give it a pass because it's accurate?
I think, I'll tell you what, I kind of give it a pass because it's accurate and those things absolutely happened and worse.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of age gaps, I'm referring.
Yeah. And to sort of teenagers growing up a bit too fast.
Yep. Wanting to be older than they are.
Yeah.
It's a very teenage thing.
Oh, yeah.
And realistic. Also, I don't think that the band are necessarily portrayed as wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could have gone further with maybe portraying them as maybe people you shouldn't want to idolize.
Yeah.
It maybe should have gone a bit further, but it does show them as flawed characters.
There's definitely nuance there.
There is nuance. I maybe would have preferred a bit more nuance. And I'm thinking about the scene like when they're on the tour bus and the young girls that are running, doing some cross country, and they look at a tour bus and they go, oh look, it's high school girls, and they're like rubbing their legs like thick raves, and it's like, we don't, and it's played as a joke. So whip that scene out for me, please. The age gap, it's gross,
especially when they talk about, she was on the tour last year, which would have made her 15.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's twice her age.
It's really hard to ignore, but I think I'm on the side of giving it a pass.
Yeah.
Because I think the film is excellent. And as you've said, I think it's historically accurate. And I think it would have been a completely different story had they emphasized any sort of romantic element or had those two characters ended up together, for example. I think that would have been a completely different film and the wrong move.
Yeah. I think it, another reason why it kind of, I don't love it, but it kind of works, is I mentioned earlier that obviously teenagers want to be way older than they are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same for the Penny Lane character. She's 16 years old. She also has some coming of age in this movie. It's those three characters. It's sort of a love triangle, which Cameron Crowe fucking loves a love triangle, doesn't he? She sort of has a coming of age as well, and she gets to the end and sort of steps away from it and says, actually, I don't want to be with Russell. I don't want to be with William. And she makes her own decision, decides to go to Morocco. So yeah, she has agency in this film. So, she makes her own choices and she's her own person. And I like that side of it. Now, would it have been maybe a bit more palatable if she was 18? Perhaps. But yeah, it wouldn't have necessarily been accurate to the times. It wouldn't have been a huge deal, but
I just don't want to. I'm so conscious of not wanting to be one of those arseholes that's like, oh, it was a different time. It was a different. Yeah, we know that.
yeah, I mean, you can have a discussion about it. Like,
Yeah.
just because it was a different time. Was it a different time? Was it? Oh, yeah. Guess what else is a different time? What? 60 seconds ago. That was a different time as well. What do you mean?
Things change.
Yeah. I think that's just something that somebody says that doesn't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And agreed, it was a different time. It was literally a different time. But I think it's, I'd like to have a discussion about it. And I think it's worthy of discussion. And realistic, yes. Did it happen? Yes. Does it happen now still? Yes. Drake's still touring. So
yuck.
There's that. But I think we're a lot more, as a culture, are aware of it and are aware that it's not okay to take advantage of young people. You know, 16, 17, technically, is it legal? Yes, at least I think so. I haven't looked into it.
Just don't marry your 13-year-old cousin, even if she is Winona Ryder.
Probably don't do that. That's probably
that's the ultimate message here.
Why do you say Winona Ryder?
Oh, Great Balls of Fire.
Which is a movie
that we brought up in a different show when we were talking about Dennis Quaid. So I'm guessing Dreamscape.
Right. Yes, it would have been Dreamscape for sure, yeah.
Go listen to that show. That was fun.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I wasn't sure if I was going to bring up the whole age gap thing.
I think you kind of have to fully discuss the movie.
Yeah.
So jumping off of that, I want to hear more about Aloha, because I've mentioned I mentioned a little bit about how I think Cameron Crowe does come close to writing interesting female characters. I think he falls short. I really do. Obviously, you already mentioned Renee Zellweger's character in Jerry Maguire, who outside of being a good mom is what? Nice, wears sweaters. Like, I can't tell you another personality trait that she has.
Mind being sexually harassed by a boss.
Yeah. As you said the other day, he harassed 100% of his staff. It's not great odds.
It's not a great start, is it?
No. Like Iona Sky in Say Anything, yeah, she has a life outside of her romantic interests. And I would argue that she's probably one of the better examples of his female characters, to be honest. But Penny Lane, she has long been accused of being a manic pixie dream girl, which is obviously, I can't remember the person's name who coined the phrase, but obviously...
It was a journalist, I assume.
It was a journalist, yeah. But manic pixie dream girl obviously describes a female character who exists primarily to serve the main male character, like to prompt their emotional growth. And they're often quirky and free-spirited and have cool hair. Scott Pilgrim, I'm looking at you. But that accusation's been levied at Almost Famous a lot over the years.
Okay.
Cameron Crowe denies it. He does not feel that Penny Lane is a manic pixie dream girl. So what are your thoughts? How do you feel about it?
I don't... Honestly, I know almost nothing about the notion of manic pixie dream girl, and it's something I'd never heard of until you told me it. Possibly when we first watched Almost Famous, 2 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, okay.
Never heard of it.
Okay.
But then there's loads of internet stuff that you introduced me to that I've never heard of. But from what you've just said to me, I guess by definition she is, right?
I think so, yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Are we saying that that's a bad thing then? Or is it just like it becomes repetitive?
It's a bit two-dimensional, and it sort of denies the female characters the sort of depth that the male counterparts have.
I think if that's all they are, then yes. But if there's a bit more to them, like I said, Penny Lane does have her own agency. She does have an arc. She does make her own choices and makes a very concrete decision for herself. And she seems to be quite happy with what she's doing. So I don't know. I guess by definition she is, but if she is, then she's an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm torn. I think the bulk of her character does fit the bill, but I think maybe her ending is something that excludes her from that categorization. I think if it had ended any other way, or if she'd gotten together with one of the male leads, then yes, she'd 100% be a Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Yep.
But I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
I think maybe she falls just short of that, which is good.
Okay.
So how does Aloha compare? Because that's one I haven't seen, which is why I'm curious.
I mean, it's not very good.
Well, that's fine, granted. But what about Emma Stone's character?
She's awful. She's a terrible character. This is not a podcast about Aloha, so I don't necessarily want to spoil it, although don't fucking watch it. Like, you're wasting your time.
But does she have agency, or is she there to sort of serve the male characters?
She doesn't really have much agency. She starts the film as like a sort of a quirky fighter pilot.
Quirky is the word, isn't it?
Quirky, yeah. But then she changes character immediately in the next scene, and she's really fancies Bradley Cooper.
Is that her only personality?
It's weird because Bradley Cooper is an arsehole in it. And then, like, in the first scene, he's a dick to her, and the next scene, she's like, he's talking to her mum. She's like, I think I fancy him. Like, he's got good in him, and like, and I'm thinking, like, what?
Did Cameron Crowe read The Game?
The novelisation of the Michael Douglas movie.
No, the one that talks about like negging and all that
the
shit.
Neil Strauss one.
Yes.
Yeah. Possibly. Well, Neil Strauss was a music journalist. Interesting. That's the connection to this. Yeah, a bit like Cameron Crowe.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in Aloha, Emma Stone she's not very good in it, and Emma Stone is great. You know, I think she's amazing. I love some of her movies.
You're right. Really, you're cocking.
But I'm trying to make the point that I really like her, despite me really liking her. She's awful in it.
Oh.
And I think that, again, that's probably mostly writing, perhaps, because it's not written great. The dialogue is pretty bad.
Okay.
I think what ended up on screen is quite different to what Cameron intended, but it seems like what was originally intended was pretty insane.
Did he wrote and directed,
Yep.
did he? Okay.
Yep.
Yikes.
And she doesn't do much. There's one line of dialogue she has with somebody, I forget what character it was, but she says, I'm a fighter pilot. I don't meet many men, or something like that. I'm a fighter pilot. And I have a hard time telling people that being a fighter pilot is sexy, something like that. And I'm thinking, really? Like, a fighter? Isn't that the sexiest job in the world? Like, if I'd met Emma Stone in real life 10 years ago, and she's like, I'm a fighter pilot, you'd be like, that's so cool, right?
But then we'd never have met.
No, of course.
You'd still be pining over her.
But yeah, just really odd dialogue. She's a terrible character. Just really poorly written. Not great. I don't know. I can't fathom in my mind that Aloha and Almost Famous were written and directed by the same person. They're so different. Like, in terms of quality, certainly. Maybe some of the themes, there's a bit of an overlap. You know, he always does a fucking love triangle. But yeah, the quality is so vastly different that you just can't. I can't wrap my head around that they're the same person.
It's not. I feel like Almost Famous was kind of like the last in his run of good films. Yeah.
I think it's probably the only. I did really like Vanilla Sky when it came out. I haven't watched it since.
Oh, I didn't care for that one.
And I think a lot of people would agree with you. So
I've never seen that zoo thing.
We bought a zoo.
I
haven't seen that. Yeah,
didn't seem like it was up my street. Elizabethtown I have seen. Kirsten Dunst is pretty much a Manic Pixie Dream Girl to serve Orlando Bloom and provide teachable moments for the male protagonist.
She does a learn on Orlando Bloom.
She does.
It's not hard though, is it? Thought she'd teach him the alphabet and he knew more.
How dare you? He's a local lad.
Is he? Canvey Island, isn't he from? Or is he Kent?
I don't know. I know he used to drink in the Bell and Crown up the road.
Oh, right. I'm sure he's a lovely bloke.
But, allegedly, we don't know.
Yeah,
might be a twat.
He's probably a twat, isn't he? He's an actor.
He's probably really boring. Most famous people are.
Yeah.
Quite dull. So, we're coming to the end here. Do you have a favourite scene?
I think you've already mentioned it.
Which one?
It's the party. It's
right.
I really like the portion of this film when they get on the road.
Yeah.
I
I thought you might.
I like the beginning of the movie. I like how it opens, where particularly where it does the handwriting of the credits and it spells out Francis McDormand's name, crosses it out because it misspells it, and then writes it again. I thought that was very funny. Like, it opens with a joke, and that's Cameron Crowe doing that writing
Is it?
himself.
He's got very nice handwriting.
Yeah. He should be a writer. I really like that, and how we're exploring the early life of William's character. And I love that first act, but I really love when they get on the road and they just, all of the antics start, and it's all of that just life on the road stuff. I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing it. It seems like a very appealing lifestyle to me, just in the nature of, different city every day.
Yeah, sounds like hell to me.
Yeah. Always traveling. There's always something new. You're partying, and that seems like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that. And I think the peak of that for me is when they're at the party. And I love how, because is that after the scene when they have the t-shirt reveal?
Yes.
And Russell is the only one facing camera, and the band's
everybody else
off.
is out of focus.
Yeah. And then that's when you get that interesting conversation about image and how they're trying to control the narrative and stuff, which is everything that Lester Bangs was railing against. So that's interesting. And then they have there's a bit of a riff in the band desk, a bit of a tiff, bit of a riff. Rift. And then Russell and William kind of go for a walk, and someone comes along and says, come to the party.
Yeah, because he wants to be around real people.
Yeah, exactly. You're real, man. This light switch is real. You're real. Your friends are real. And the guy goes, you want me to see do you want to see me feed a mouse to my snake? and he immediately, yeah. And that's really good example of the editing and the humor in this.
And the delivery.
And the delivery. And that whole kind of 10-minute sequence in that party, I think, is my favourite. All of my favourite jokes are in that. I think I'm laughing pretty consistently throughout this. Okay. There's always moments where I'm smiling and I'm enjoying it. But I think there I'm consistently laughing. How do we know when the acid kicks in? Cuts to him on top of the roof. How do we know you're not a cop? I love that. Love that. And apparently is something that happened to Cameron Crowe. Like, he was doing interviews with, I forget who it was, but a rock star, and they'd done a little few too many substances and got the old paranoia, and was genuinely concerned that he'd told Cameron Crowe too much and sort of said, how do we know you're not a cop? And confiscated all of his tapes because he thought he was going to give them to the FBI or something. Yeah, so I think all of that stuff I enjoyed. Just that party stuff, it just makes me smile.
Yeah, I
just enjoy it. It's just a fun time. That's what I like about it.
I think I feel that way about the whole film, though.
Yeah, I knew this question was coming about the scenes, and I was struggling a little bit because I do really enjoy this throughout. I don't think it has a dull moment. I think it's
perfectly paced.
It's really well paced. But there is a 2-hour 40-minute version of this, and I would be interested to see that.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if there's perhaps more Philip Seymour Hoffman, or I don't know. I mean, that's a lot of footage, an extra 40 minutes, an extra third to add on, and apparently it's very good. But maybe the theatrical version does breeze by, and it's so easy to watch. And I sort of struggled to pick a favourite moment. I think it has to be that party scene. What is there, like, a scene that sticks out to you? Is it something that you enjoy the most, or something you feel like is the essence of the movie? Is there a scene that you can pick out?
I think there are two really pivotal scenes that I like. The first one comes directly after your favourite, and that's when they sort of bundle Russell back on the bus.
Yeah.
And they're all sat there in silence because there's like a bunch of different you've got me doing it now, rifts happening between everybody. But then Tiny Dancer comes on and they all just start quietly singing along, and then it becomes, I don't know, it sort of exemplifies the movie to me, and the ethos of like music bringing people together and it being like a uniting force ultimately of good.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think it's really nicely done.
Yeah. I like that scene too. I think that's a really, really nice scene. It's a good song. I mean, I don't know how Tony Danza feels about it. Hold me closer, Tony Danza.
I bet he hates it. How many people must have sung that at him over the years?
Every day, probably, yeah. No, I like it. And I like your point about it kind of being the essence, because music bringing people together after the argument that they've had. And I love the look on Billy Crudup's face when he starts singing it.
Yeah.
And apparently just not Billy Crudup, not a confident singer at all.
Okay.
And was a bit self-conscious in that sing about belting that out. And Cameron Crowe was like, look, just go for it, man. Like, it's all good. And he was relieved by that. And what you see is relief on his face when he sort of smiles. And it's interesting because the character is relieved because they're getting over this argument that they've had. And at the same time, the actor is also relieved. So it's good directing from Cameron Crowe. I think he's picked his cast really well in this. I think it's written really well. I think the characters are very interesting. And I think it's definitely my favourite Cameron Crowe. But interesting in that scene, I think it took them 2 or 3 days to shoot that, or perhaps 2, which seems like a long time. But I think that they realised how important that scene was as well. And like you probably thought, this is kind of the movie. We have to shoot this. So they spent a long time trying to get it right. And apparently Noah Taylor just couldn't stand the song. So it's very interesting that he had to listen to that song for like 2 days. And just, God, can you imagine? That would drive you insane. Maybe that's why he agreed to do Tomb Raider. Maybe,
yeah. That's a legitimate torture method, is making people listen to music that they hate.
Yeah.
I hope he got paid well.
Yeah.
But the other scene, kind of similar, that I really love is sort of towards the end. It's, I guess, like in the all is lost portion.
Which bit's that then?
And that's when they're on the plane, when they've sort of conceded to Jimmy Fallon's managerial tips, and they've agreed to do the last leg of the tour on a plane, and they get hit really bad turbulence, think they're going to die, and everybody starts confessing things. I mean, there's a couple of gags in there as well. Like, I think somebody starts singing Peggy Sue,
right?
Which obviously Buddy Holly song, who died. But I don't know. I really like that because it's sort of a bunch of characters who are really disparate at that time, and their confessions kind of make those rifts worse.
Yeah.
You know, like the confessions of Jason Lee saying, "Oh, I slept with your wife," and the one guy at the back who does he even have a name?
Biddy McLonghair.
Yeah, who says that he's gay, and then William has his outburst about how he loves Penny. I don't know. I really like that because it's kind of it's still played for laughs, but it's also quite sincere, and there's some dramatic heft behind it as well.
Yeah. I think it's a very important scene. I think if you take that scene out, it's missing something. You need that conversation for everyone to just kind of purge what they're thinking and feeling, and it kind of everything kind of comes to a head at that point.
Yeah, and then followed by that scene of them just silently trudging down the walkway in the airport.
Yeah, which is how all holidays end.
Yeah, like generally.
Was that after or before the overdose scene?
That was after.
That was after. Okay. I thought that was a weird scene. I thought it was weird that William tried to kiss Penny.
Yeah,
when she
that's
was
not okay.
unconscious.
That's not okay. Non-consensual. Not okay.
I thought that was weird. But she got her hands on some Quaaludes, which she got from Leonardo DiCaprio, I think.
Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
No, that would have been a decade later.
True.
Maybe he got them off her.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah. I think Jonah Hill got them off of Penny Lane.
Right.
Jonah Hill gave them to Leonardo DiCaprio. Then he drove that Lamborghini.
Right.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Didn't crash it.
Didn't even ding it. So, I think that's it. I think we're at the end of our Almost Famous discussion. And oddly, we started and ended this season on films that were adapted into musicals to varying success.
That's a really good point.
I didn't realise until I was doing my research for this one.
I saw a clip of Cameron Crowe on Jimmy Flannel, and he was offering the part back to Jimmy Flannel because he was like, "Oh, you played this part in the movie, Jimmy Flannel. Please, will you play it again in the musical? There's a spot for you." I don't know if he did it.
Okay.
But was that successful? That musical?
I think it was fairly well received.
Right. Okay.
More so than the Carrie musical. I know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it for Coming of Age. Obviously, we are going to do a much longer chat in our wrap-up show.
Yes, next week. This time next week will
Yeah.
be our end of season wrap show, available over on our £3 a month tier on Patreon. So if you're a member, you'll get that next week.
Yep.
We'll do a preview of that show on the main feed next week, and then a preview of season 9 the week after.
Which is...
Oh, do you want me to reveal that now?
We usually do.
Okay. Season 9 is back to me.
Yeah.
I'm choosing a theme. Something a bit different for this season.
Uh-oh.
I've chosen an actor.
Oh, no.
I'm giving everyone a little moment to just try and figure out what actor it might be. Who's going to guess?
Is it Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Can you imagine if it was Jean-Claude Van Damme? I could do that.
Yeah,
genuinely.
I know you could.
Yeah.
Just hard target 8 times.
I wonder if anyone's guessed. If you guessed, let me know. But 3, 2, 1, Nicolas Cage. It has to be, right? The first actor season we're doing.
Coming of Cage.
Coming of Cage. I love it. There you go. That's what it's called. From coming of age to coming of cage. Yeah, so we're back with that season on January the 6th. So brand new year, brand new season. The first movie we're going to be covering is Vampire's Kiss.
Oh, never seen that.
I've not seen either, but it was on a streaming platform the other day. We saw it pop up on there. So I thought, yeah, that's kind of been in my brain since then. If you do want to know the full schedule of that season, then that will be on our Patreon, on our free tier. The day that the season 9 preview drops, so around sometime this year. And also in a few weeks, we've got our end of 2024 show, our sort of Christmas thing that we sort of did last year. And we're going to try and do the same thing again.
Yes.
So a couple of weeks for that. It's all happening, and then brand new season next year. And we're off for year 3 of the podcast.
Crazy
times.
Thank you for putting on with us.
Yeah.
For almost 3 years. Wait, what?
Well, it's almost 2 years, but it's
Yeah.
our third. It was like 2022, 2023, 2024.
Okay.
That's how numbers work.
It is. Thank you.
You're welcome.